The fun factor on this bike, guys, is insane. The price for watt/performance on this for $16.99 is crazy. You guys got to stick around and check out this video if you're a thrill seeker, because this bike is super fun and over 40 miles per hour, which is crazy for the price. Now, I'm not trying to sell you guys any bikes. Just like in all my videos, you can see by the performance testing I do and watch it for yourself. Seeing it is believing it, and my videos don't lie. So if you want to pick up one of these after watching this video, please use the link down below, and there'll also be a discount code down there where you can save a couple bucks. And if you use that link, it will help support the channel, and that's what helps me creating these videos. So thanks in advance if you decide to use that link. But let's get into it. All right, you have to see this. I'm starting this grassy hill test on the center of the hill. This bike's outputting 170 Newton meters of torque, which is crazy. That's 10 more Newton meters than my Hemingway mid-drive, which is over $4,000. But let's try this starting from mid-hill, and I'm only at about 80 to 85% battery currently at 64.1 volts. Let's see if this bike will pull me up this hill. I think it's gonna have no problem. What I have to worry about is the front wheel coming off the ground. Ready? Let's go. That's crazy, guys. 170 Newton meters of torque. This bike has insane torque, insane power to pull me up this hill from the center of the hill. And if you've seen my e-bike video test where I did like 19 different bikes up this hill, look, I can barely even stop on this hill. Almost no bikes make it up to the point to where I started. So 500 watt bikes, even some 750 watt bikes only made it to where I started with this bike, which is pretty crazy, guys. This power is insane. Woo! Woo! And just to compare, just like I do with all my other bikes, let's start from where I normally start from with every other bike and see how it does. Awesome. That was with a 170-pound rider. That's with a 70-pound rider. I think he's ready for a Tuttio Solio 1. What do you think?
This thing's crazy.
Don't try that at home. All right, everyone, so check this thing out. This is the Tuttio ICT. This is a 60-volt e-bike with a 42-amp controller and a 60-volt 25-amp-hour battery that's outputting a max of 4,000 watts into the rear hub motor. Now, I don't know if that's exactly true because 67.2 times 42 is a little over 2,800 watts, but still, this bike is insane, guys. It has crazy torque at 170 Newton meters. And you can see on this grassy hill test that I started from midway, it pulled me up no problem. I was actually a little concerned because the front wheel started to come off the ground, but the torque of this bike is insane, guys. Super fun, super powerful, and it's $1,699. I don't know if you're gonna beat the price per watt or fun factor for what this bike is currently going for as of me filming this video, which is $1,699. So like I said, in the frame here, you have a 60-volt, 25-amp-hour battery, and the max output of the battery is 60 amps, which is pretty nice. And then down here, behind this housing here, you have a 42-amp, 60-volt controller powering this 2,000-watt hub motor in the rear. And they say that hub motor's peaking at 4,000 watts, which is crazy. And this bike also comes with a 60-volt, 2.5-amp-hour charger. So if this thing's completely dead, it should take somewhere around 10 hours to charge up, but probably more likely to be about 8 to 10 hours depending on how low you drain your battery. But it is capable of inputting up to 5 amps if you have a little bit of a faster 60-volt charger. The braking system on this bike, guys, is pretty nuts. It has KTET DOT4 or 5.1 fluid in these brakes, which is like a moped style brake, like a motorcycle brake, coming down to 4-piston hydraulic disc brakes with 220 millimeter rotors on both the front and the rear of this bike. And I gotta tell you guys, the stopping power on this bike is excellent. The suspension's not bad either, even though the front suspension does not have a lockout or an adjustment on it. Not too bad. However, don't expect to take it off a ton of jumps because it's very, very good on rough terrain, but I'd be a little cautious skying a few feet in the air with these front forks. On the rear, you have an adjustable air suspension shock. You can adjust it a little bit right here with the spring tension. They actually give you a tool for that, which is really nice. And you can add a little bit of weight here to adjust that rear suspension as well for different rider weights. Now, this bike is rated for up to 330 pounds capacity, and it weighs 103 pounds with the battery. The bike itself weighs about 86 pounds, and then the battery is about 17 pounds. So 103 pounds total. For those of you wanting to put it on a bike rack, make sure you have a decently heavy duty one that's gonna hold at least 86 pounds, because that's what it weighs without the battery. The tires on this bike are like an all-terrain tire. They're 20 by 4 inch Black Cats. They actually say moped on them, so it's kind of like a moped tire. Very nice and heavy duty all-terrain tire, and it's actually the same tire that's used on the $3,000 Anioki bike that I've reviewed this past year. Seems very nice and heavy duty and should hold up to those high speeds pretty well. Now, once you get this thing out of the box and tear off all the plastic, it's pretty easy assembly. All you have to do is spin the stem around, install the handlebars, and then using the foam that came with the packaging, you flip the bike over and rest the handlebars on that foam, which will keep the shifter and everything up off the ground so you don't break it. And then it makes it a lot easier to install the front wheel. And what I love about this new upgraded version is that it actually has a through axle, so that's going to be very strong compared to, I've seen some original reviews online that had just a regular axle. Very nice that this one now has a through axle with additional bolts that actually help secure that in there. Once you get that front wheel on, you can install your kickstand, your pedals, and then flip the bike back over, install your front fender and your headlight, and then your assembly is pretty much done. You do want to go over the whole bike, make sure all your nuts and bolts are tight, make sure your tire pressure is good to go. And when I took this out of the box, actually the back tire was completely flat. They probably do that for shipping. I was a little bit surprised by that because most companies have air in the tire. However, this one was completely flat. When you do air that up, make sure you kind of massage it to make sure it gets set on that bead all the way around perfectly so it doesn't hop. And I seen in another review that they said the arrows were going the wrong way. The arrows are actually going the right way of the wheel travel. So they must have made some updates, which is nice. So up here on the handlebars, you have a nice set of locking grips. Next to that, you have a switch to turn your headlight on and a button for your horn. And next to that, your control pad for controlling your pedal assist levels and turning the bike on. And there is 5 levels of assist. However, just keep in mind, level 1 is about 18 miles per hour. So if you're buying this bike to ride around town very slow, you're gonna either have to lower your max speed down or set cruise control so that you can pedal this bike slower than 18 miles per hour. And I'll show you that in my next video. Actually, if you guys are interested, make sure you stick around for that next video because I'm gonna be doing a long ride out through the country, possibly doing a range test. We'll see how many miles we get that day, but we're gonna be going full speed on a lot of it, see how fast this bike goes, see how it goes up some long steep hills, and just see the performance overall. Over here on the left-hand side, you have your key for turning the bike on and off, which is nice. You could take the key out and it prevents anybody from turning your bike on and just riding away with it. You have a full grip twist throttle in your 7-speed Shimano shifter, leading down to a 14 to 28 freewheel using a Shimano tourney derailleur to shift through those 7-speed gears. Now, it would have been nice to see an 11 to 28 freewheel so you still had a little bit of resistance when pedaling in pedal assist 1. You do still have some resistance in 1, but it seems like a little bit fast paced. Once you hit 2, you're pretty much ghost pedaling because this bike is super fast, guys. Like I said, turn your speed down if you want to pedal anything less than like 18 miles per hour. And one thing I noticed on this bike, even though the speed's limited to 18 miles an hour in pedal assist 1 and the throttle is also limited to 18 miles per hour, it doesn't seem like the power is much limited because even in 1, it pulled me up that hill starting from the beginning with pedal assist 1. So even though the max speed's limited in 1, I don't believe the torque is limited, which is amazing because you can still be in 1 and still have tons of torque to get you up those long steep hills. But this 60 amp hour battery and that 42 amp controller is pumping tons of wattage through this rear motor to output 170 newton meters of torque, which is crazy because that's 10 more newton meters of torque than the Hemingway Cobra Pro that I reviewed, and it's a mid-drive bike with a 1,000 watt Bafang mid-drive. So that's pretty crazy that this thing has that much torque. Now, one thing about that torque comes with a little bit of loud noise coming from the rear motor. They're probably using maybe a steel gear in there, which is good. It's gonna prevent it from breaking and gonna be a lot more durable. Just keep in mind that it is a lot louder. If anybody has ever torn one of these apart and know what kind of gear they've been using, please put it down in the comments, let us know. I'm not about to tear this one apart unless I have problems with it, but honestly, this thing's been holding up good and sounds very, very strong. Definitely one of the most strongest hub motor bikes that I've reviewed to date. Up here on the front, they have a nice bright headlight and a bright tail light that's actually a brake light when you pull the brake lever. So that's always nice to see for safety. And then they also have a little plastic fender in the rear. However, that's kind of short. It's not gonna probably prevent much mud and water flying up on your back. And it does have a short front fender. Now, one thing I did notice that's worth mentioning is with this front fender on, the battery does not come in and out very easy. You have to kind of turn this so that the forks turn more this way, and then you kind of have to bend this fender down to get the battery in and out. Not a deal breaker, but honestly, maybe I'll end up removing that front fender because I love the way it looks even without it. And like I said, the front suspension's nothing too crazy. There's really no adjustments on it. It's just a spring suspension. Does seem fairly good hitting the bumps, especially on a dirt road, potholes, things like that. However, where you're really going to notice it is when you're hitting jumps, skying a few feet in the air, landing. That's when you're really going to notice the suspension not having a rebound or compression adjuster. But overall, for the price point, guys, I don't think this can be beat. But the hill test video that I just did up this hill, like I said, I was at 80% because all the B-roll I got was on this battery charge that you seen in the beginning of the video. Started at full charge, but this thing pulls the front wheel off the ground very easily when you first pull out. Now, when you're riding and you hit the throttle, it doesn't really pop it up very easy, but when you start out from a dead stop, this thing has tons of torque, enough to pull that front wheel up just by putting a little bit of pressure on those pedals or by leaning back, which is pretty insane. But overall, guys, if you're looking for something that you're not really wanting to pedal, if you just want to get on, throttle around, have some fun, the thrill factor of this bike is pretty insane, guys. Now, you can see the seat's very comfortable in my opinion when you're throttling around. However, if you try to pedal, it's not going to be very comfortable. It's going to be, your legs are going to be kind of a little bit wide, and it's going to kind of squish you on that seat, so it's not really going to be good for pedaling. It's just not the most comfortable with that wide seat. But honestly, most people buying this bike are going to throttle around more than anything. And my son's been dying for the past year to get a Tuttio Solio. He's been hounding me like crazy. He said this will definitely hold him off for a little bit, but he still wants a Solio. And he's a very experienced rider, so don't let your kids try this bike at home. That's definitely not recommended. And we're going to try this again in the next video once I get the battery fully charged back up. And let's go hit the paved hill that I hit in all my videos with a fully charged battery. We're going to hit it right now with 80%, see how it does up there. And then we're going to do a quick max speed run at about 80% battery. This is about what you can expect while you're riding. But like I said, we'll do max speed runs. We'll do the hill test again with a full battery in a future video, so make sure you stick around to see that. Let's see what this bike got. All right, here we go, throttle only. Let's see how fast we can get up this hill. Pedal assist 5, full throttle. 23 miles per hour on the bike's display. 22, 21, 22, never dropped below 21 miles per hour on the bike's display. That's pretty insane. I feel like it's pretty accurate with GPS, but in the next video, we're actually gonna be having GPS side by side with the display. We'll see how accurate it is, and we'll see what kind of speed we can get going up that hill. But this is definitely one of the fastest bikes I have up that hill with throttle only. Let's see what we can get on level ground. Hitting some bumps here. Very nice on the suspension. And again, this is only at about 80% charge, but let's see what it'll do. You guys might not be able to see that. 29, 32, 35, 36, 37, 30, almost 38 miles an hour. Woo! Almost 38 miles an hour with 80% battery charge. I'm sure this thing will do over 40 with a full one. Not sure if you can see that. Uphill a little bit, 32, 33, 34, and I gotta slow down because I'm out of runway. Whew. This bike is crazy fun though, guys. The fun factor on it alone, whew, in my opinion, well worth the $16.99.